Okay, so hello, welcome to week 5. We have a very small class today because I think there's a couple midterms going on. Hopefully, a couple other people trickle in late. Um, but thank you for coming today. Again, there are brownies. If you want some, if you want more, go for it. That's totally fine. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a continuation from last week about FDM printing. And then we're going to go over how to render your final projects, which is basically the last thing you need to finish this course. And then we'll just leave it open for any questions that you might have. So just bear with me. I'm going to be going over some pretty technical stuff. So if you don't understand all of it, don't worry too much. But again, this is all like good knowledge for you to have in your back pocket for when you might be designing something for FDM. So yeah, module 4 continued. So again, we're going to talk about mostly materials today. So there's a very large variety of materials that you can use in FDM 3D printing. And this is largely because it gets to piggyback off of kind of like the injection molding industry and just like most thermoplastics in industry. Just because most of them gets melted down and then put into some kind of mold because FDM printing melts things down and extrudes it instead. It benefits from all of those properties, as in you can use all of them for the most part. Again, there's a bunch of different strengths and weaknesses that you can have in a part based on your design, but also based on the material. So choosing the right material can be important for your some circumstances. By far, I would say one of the most common types of materials that you'll see in FDM printing is a material called PLA. It's actually a bio-based plastic based from corn. So it's technically biodegradable, but in my opinion, it's kind of a marketing term because it has to be under very specific conditions that most places don't have to actually recycle them. But technically, they're recyclable. It's really nice to use just because it likes to print very easily because it melts at really low temperatures. And it also means that you usually don't need to run very high bed temperatures either. Back in the day, a lot of printers didn't come with heated beds, and that's why PLA became such a great option just because it was so forgiving, and people like it today because it actually cools very well. So you can, like, when you're printing very fast, you can just blow a ton of air at it and it'll cool down. It doesn't really like to warp very much. So that's often why it's a very popular material. In terms of mechanical properties, it can usually be pretty strong for most applications, especially if you're like having something sit on a desk. It's not really subject to any harsh loads. So because of its ease of use and printability, it's very popular. From last week, you saw some of the Nerf blasters that I brought that were 3D printed. A lot of my friends print those out of PLA, and for the most part, they're pretty good. They don't break very often, so it's a pretty reliable material. The one weakness, in my opinion, is its low temperature resistance. So let's say you like leave a PLA part in your trunk or something in a warm environment for an extended period of time, it'll tend to warp. So I tend to steer away from PLA, but depending on your application, like if it's just a desk toy or something, it's usually going to be perfectly fine. But yeah, it's a very popular material, and a lot of people like it. ABS is another popular material. It's been getting increasingly popular. It used to be one of the only filaments you could get, like when 3D printing first started. Then PLA took over because it was a lot easier to print. But now it's coming back with a lot of better and more capable 3D printers. So one of the advantages of ABS is its high temperature resistance. So for my car that is broken right now, I have some 3D printed ABS parts in my engine bay, and they don't warp. They take the heat, and it's pretty nice and dependable. Um, but yeah, it's a very strong material, and you'll find it in a lot of injection molded applications. So again, Nerf blasters off the shelf are almost entirely made out of ABS, and most plastic toys like Legos and stuff like that are some form of ABS. So it's a pretty popular material, very strong, very heat resistant, but the cons is that it tends to warp and it doesn't like to be printed as much as something like a PLA. Um, Again, it's less of an issue with better printers these days, especially those that are fully enclosed. So fully enclosed printers make sure it keeps all the ambient heat inside the printer, and it keeps the ambient temperatures high, so it reduces warping. But that's kind of more technical. But yeah, ABS is pretty cool. I started to print with ABS after I got my Voron that you saw last week, and I really like it. And a lot of your finals are going to be printed in ABS. So yeah, PTG is, I would say, my second favorite filament at this point. It's kind of ABS and ASA has kind of taken over, but this is what I used to print exclusively back before I had a fully enclosed printer. I really like it because it's very easy to print like PLA. It's just slightly harder because it tends to string and it's a little bit hydrophobic, which means it absorbs water, and that water can be introduced as bubbles and print artifacts when you print. So as long as you keep your filament dry, PTG is a pretty great material. I found it to be a little bit more flexible than PLA. So depending on your application, that might be what you want. It's still a very rigid plastic though, so it's not like a squishy ball or anything. Again, the blasters that you saw last week are all made out of PETG, and as you can see, they can sustain a pretty large amount of force because, you know, I'm using like 20 kilogram spring to propel a dart, and those plastic plungers inside will take the blunt of the force, and they don't really break very often. So yeah, I like PETG. It's a pretty great material. Again, it's susceptible to moisture, so if you ever plan on printing it, make sure it's in a nice dry environment or get a dry box. But yeah, that's more technical stuff that is kind of more than you need to know. But yeah, it's a pretty great material. It's a little bit stronger than PLA for most cases, so that's why I prefer it over PLA. But again, circumstances, desk toy, you don't really need it to withstand being run over by a car or something. So yeah. TPU is a very interesting filament. It's one of the more flexible ones. So this is one that you could get to be like a squishy ball, depending on your application. TPUs come in like a wide variety of hardnesses. So you can get really soft TPUs that you can basically like slam your hand down and the print will like compress. But then you can get harder TPUs that are more like, you know, harder to compress, if that makes sense. It doesn't really warp just because it's so flexible, but it does like to be printed a lot slower than the other materials that I've listed before. But it's a really cool filament, especially if you have like a printer that can do multiple materials at the same time. You can kind of like use something like a PTG to get like your rigid structures and then combine it with something like a TPU to make like a flexible joint or something. So that's like an application of TPU that I find to be pretty interesting. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Nylon is kind of a more advanced material. We're kind of going to get into more advanced materials in a little bit, but we're kind of creeping into the range of like higher temperature filaments. It's not like the highest, but as you can see, these like temperatures are starting to be a little bit higher. Like for reference, PLA prints at around like 200 to 220. But over here you can see it goes all the way up to 260. and you can easily go higher depending on the specific kind of nylon you get. It's very strong, stronger than all the other materials that I've talked about before, but it's also very flexible and durable. So if you want a more rigid material, you might want to choose a different one. But this one will usually hold up to whatever you throw at it. Typically, nylon is pretty expensive, so you generally don't see it a lot in like desktop applications. But in more engineering focused like strength focused applications for FDM printing, you will see nylons incorporated. So like if people make 3D printed battle bots, nylon is not a bad material to use. And I've seen it a couple times. So yeah, polycarbonate is also one of these higher temperature filaments. I've tried to print it before and it is pretty difficult, but in the end, you do get a lot of nice benefits from using these higher temp and stronger materials. For reference, polycarbonate is the same material that they use to make bulletproof glass. So you're printing a very strong material, but usually that means it's pretty difficult. So it's very strong, you know, it can stop a bullet. Most polycarbonates that you get for 3D printers are not pure. It has like some blends to make it easier to print, but it's still very strong. But again, it requires very high nozzle temperatures. So for some printers, it could be a challenge. And they're also pretty expensive. I think I bought a roll for like 50 bucks. And compared to like a PLA that's like 18 to 20, it's kind of a lot. But yeah. Again, there's like a bajillion different filaments out there, and I haven't talked about all of them. You can have like a bunch of infused filaments where people put like carbon fiber into certain materials to make it more rigid. So there's like carbon fiber PTG where they put like little bits of carbon fiber into it to make it really strong. So again, I didn't talk about all of them. Here's a little chart if you're interested. And this kind of shows that different materials can provide like pros and cons to your certain application. So again, nice thing to know in the back of your pocket for when you print stuff. Yeah, it's kind of technical, so don't worry. If you're interested on where you can print at Purdue, I don't remember all these links work, but there's a bunch of like 3D printing clubs or 3D printing services across campus. So if you ever need stuff 3D printed, you can always go to them. I also have 3D printers, so if you need things printed, you can also ask me. I believe Amr has printers.
Yeah,
but
I've got a lab. You can print stuff there. And if you've got a big project, we'll probably just ask you to cover the cost of the filament, but not the printing cost. We've got Prusa Mark 4s. We've got 6 of them. And we also have a resin printer. But again, if you would like to make a project there, that's the big. Like I can do anything that's sub 8 hours, 10 hours printing for free. But anything more than that, we'd ask you to cover a small chunk of the filament cost.
yeah.
So if you've got any big projects, send me out. We'll set it up.
Yeah, I also do that kind of stuff. So I know some people who are doing research and they need like high turnaround 3D prints that are pretty large. So I'll be printing stuff that like takes up to like 24 to like 30 hours just to get some of their stuff finished. So if you need any 3D printing services, we definitely have resources like in this room, but also all across campus. So there's no shortage of 3D printers. There's always someone willing to print stuff, and we're always happy to help.
And Bechtel is also a resource that you can use
Yeah.
for 3D printing.
So again, here's a bunch of resources. Yeah, if you need it. 3D printing is fun. So yeah, that's kind of all the blabbing. I'm gonna talk about 3D printing for now. Now we're just gonna be rendering your final projects. So I don't know if you've seen the rubric for week 5, but some of your assignments include rendering. and we're going to be doing that in class today, so you know how to do it, and then you can render your finals. Basically, a render is just a very high quality image of your design, and you'll often find it in like product ads. So a lot of the times, like a company will, advertise their brand new phone, and then it'll have it like spin around in like 3D space. A lot of the times, it's not a real phone, and they'll just do it digitally through rendering. We're not doing like animated rendering, but we're going to do photo rendering. So we're going to have very nice photos of our final projects. So if you want, you can open Fusion if you haven't already. I need to. And I'm basically going to run you through a practice render. So that'll be an assignment, but I also want you to render your final. So don't just render one thing and submit it twice, because there's two submissions. One is the render practice. One is the render practice we're doing right now, but the other one is a render of your final. So render your final, but don't submit, or render this or what we're doing now, and then render your final either after I teach you this or after class, and then submit that in the second one. Does that make sense? Because sometimes I have people like send me one render twice, and then I can't give them points. So yeah, please send two different renders. So for this assignment, I'm just going to have you open anything that you've made in this class, just so we can render it. I think I might just choose like the Lego car or something, but you're welcome to choose the engineering fountain or something else. That's a pretty popular one. So over here, I'm going to open the data panel, which is this 9 square thing. Oh, I'm not in the right one. Okay, so I'm going to be rendering the game piece that we did on week 1. So you just double click it, you open your file. You want to add appearances, because this is partially why appearances can be important, because you can apply material properties to it for like calculating the center of mass and stuff like that, but it will also take the appearance into account when you render something. So I'm going to hide the data panel. This is our normal like design environment. You can see all the tools we have up here, sketching and stuff like that. But to render it, it's pretty simple. You just click on the design button, and then there's a render button. So this render button will open up a different workspace. So if I click on it, it'll load for a little bit, and it'll take you into this environment. So you see it looks a little bit different. Over here, there's the appearance button, just like we have been using earlier. So if you wanted to change the appearance of your model, you can click on it and change it. Again, there's multiple appearances that you could choose. You can choose like metal or glass finishes and stuff like that. I'm just going to close this for now. So if you go under the design tab, or it should say design for you, but there's a render button. So it'll take you to this environment. Is everyone good? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so you'll see we're in this environment. The background looks kind of boring because it's just like a default gray background. To change that, you can go under the scene settings, which is right next to the appearance button. It'll open up a menu over here. And then it'll allow you to change a couple parameters. So the first one is like brightness and like how bright your render is going to be. There's a slider so you can change to see how bright it is. That's probably a bit too bright, so I'm just going to leave it over here. For background, there's the solid color option, but for our purposes for the final, I request that you choose a background instead of just using a gray background, just so I know that you know how to use the certain environments. So basically, if you click this drop down, there's the solid color option and then the environment option. I would like you to choose the environment option, and then it will allow you to choose cool backgrounds. So pick environment. You'll see nothing really happens, but if you go under the environment library, you can see there's a bunch of environments. Again, I would really prefer you not to use like the cool light or something like that. Choose a nice like colorful background, or like make it look like it's in like real space instead of just floating, if you get what I'm trying to say. So for example, if I double click on this plaza, it should load. Okay, yeah, there it goes. You can see that this game piece is now shown in kind of courtyard area, right? I'm actually not sure. I was always curious on where this actually was. If it is, then that's cool. But I actually don't know where it is. Sorry. Um, but yeah, you can manipulate your object in space to kind of get the right angle that you're looking for. Sometimes it'll look a little bit weird because it's basically like a 3D image. And I don't know if you've seen like the memes when people are like doing random things with like a 360 camera on their face and then their eyes look like they're aliens. But sometimes if you get the angle in a weird spot, it might look like that. So yeah, just kind of move it around in space until you get what you want. I think this is fine for all intents and purposes. Um, like, how's that? Your object into the photo. Yeah, it looks kind of weird, but again, you can choose different environments, and your part might look more at home in those environments. Yeah, that'll kind of happen. I haven't pressed the render button yet, but once you try to render on your computer, your computer is gonna sound like you're at an airport. So I'm gonna show you that you don't necessarily have to do that in a little bit, but I'm also gonna show you just kind of how you can render on your laptop. So you didn't? Oh, I'm sorry. It'll get louder. But yeah, once you're kind of satisfied with the placement, you can press this render button up here. There's a little teapot. Oh wait, no. Uh, Here, I'll do the normal computer or local rendering first. So if you want to do the in canvas render, you can click on this button here, and then it'll start to render your part locally on your computer. So you can see that like it starts super pixely, and then it slowly gets more and more detailed until it looks very nice. If you ever decide to move your part, so if I like rotate it in any way, it gets super blurry, and then when I let go, it'll start to render, and then it'll start to look better as you wait longer. So this is cool that you can render on your computer, but again, some people's computers are taking off, and we don't really enjoy that all the time. So we can outsource this to Autodesk and have them render it for us. So the nice thing about Fusion 360 is, again, it's cloud-based. So you can send your file out to Fusion, and they'll render it for you, and then they'll send it back. So once you kind of like where you are in your render, you can press the teapot. I clicked it preemptively, but if you click it, it'll give you a couple options. For us, because we're students, all of this is a free service, which is really nice. So again, you can select cloud or local render. I would suggest cloud just because you can send it and the computer in Fusion or at Autodesk will do it for you instead of you having to wait like 10 minutes or like half an hour for your whole thing to render. So you just choose Cloud Render. You can choose Final, as you can see, you have an unlimited number of renders, and then you just press Render. It's very simple. It'll then send your document, or it'll send your part file, and then kind of like the orientation that you've put it in to Autodesk, and then they're just going to do it for you. Over here, you can see that it's sent out, and you just kind of have to wait a few minutes, usually like 10, 15 minutes, and then they'll get back to you. Once they do get back to you, you can just download the image. So it's pretty simple. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, sure. So again, once you kind of have it angled the way you want, you just press the teacup on the top. It'll give you this pop-up here. You want to choose a cloud render and then final, and then you just press render, and then it'll send it. But once you get the photo, it'll pop up over here. I'm pretty sure you just right click it and then save it to wherever you want on your computer, and then you can just send that, or yeah, you can just submit that image to me as proof that you did this assignment. Some people took screenshots of Fusion and sent that to me, and that doesn't count because it's not a render. You're just sending me a photo of Fusion. So send me the render once you get it back from Autodesk, because I want you to get full points. Is that simple enough? Yeah. What's up?
I don't have the education, not because I don't have all my things, because I don't know, it just has 2 days left, so I just wait 2 days.
Are you still on the free trial?
I'm on the trial.
Okay. Did you try the uninstall install thing already? Like, did you uninstall like the application itself and then reinstall it? Okay. I would do that because sometimes it fixes that. If not, you can wait 2 days and see what happens.
Yeah, don't wait 2 days.
But I would recommend you just do the thing right now.
If you wait 2 days, what it does is it expires, and once it expires, you cannot save anything. Or and you can just read only stuff. I had one student in the last session who had that issue. His Autodesk had expired, but he had the license, but it's like software did not update, and he had made a whole project. So then I had to sit with him for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, for this entire project again. That's easy for me, but for him as a beginner, it was a nightmare for him. So I said, so that's why I would not recommend you to wait for 2 days. Try to get that problem fixed ASAP, because you will not be able to save any files.
I don't know. For some reason, when mine expired, it just like gave me the education license. So yeah,
What?
I don't know. Your situation could be different. Maybe I just got lucky. But I wouldn't wait. So if you want to uninstall it now, we can work with you to get that fixed.
Yeah. And use the installer provided from like the Autodesk website.
Yeah. Oh, for the final render, I just left it as stock. I mean, if you yeah, I mean, if you want to crop it, then you totally can. I'm not gonna stop you. But I just left it at what it was given. Um, but yeah, again, you can adjust like your scene settings. That might be something that you might want to adjust if it like comes back too bright or dark. Sometimes I get some pretty dark renders, but I can tell it's a render. So.
What? Yeah, yeah, they do that. Everything, it works. And file ends in 2 days.
Email the Autodesk. Like, well, like if you have time right now, just send a quick little email to Autodesk. If we can get it figured out here, then that's good. But if we can't, then hopefully Autodesk can fix it.
If you're gonna fix that, every, I try to do pressure solving on it. And we give you this advice.
Yeah, it was, I was concerned about like over. Yeah, I was kind of going.
Yep, that's it. Just rendering.
Your last map. Oh, of course, we need to be left.
So I signed up for this class.
It's been like 260.
Okay. So for those of you who have pending trials that aren't going away, the solution to rendering is just rendering locally instead of on the cloud. So I've shown a couple of you already. But when you go to render, you can just choose local render instead, and you'll just be able to do it. It'll just make your computer do it, and it might take time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So again, like if you can't render because your education license isn't working, you just press the teapot, and then instead of cloud render, you do local render, final, and then render. It'll take a while, but your computer will do it eventually. If you have a more powerful computer, it may not be very long, anyways. If you want to download your render, you can just click on it. It'll give you a preview of it once it loads. And then you can download it here. PNG or JPEG should be fine, as long as the Google form can read it. So yeah. Thank you for that, because I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I was looking at the video last week. So what we do here. Okay, it's
I think today's class is gonna be over. You're ready for this semester? Oh, to end. That's yeah. Are you taking any classes?
I'm much. I'm not.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the class. Oh, thank you. If there's any like course review I can do, like
And it's an option. I would recommend taking 272 because you get like free lab with a distance program. It's 4 credits, and the lab is basically free.
yeah, but I really use this.
I would recommend because your lab, because your midterms then don't have that much of a weightage, and like it's de-stressing. Think about it. You can even take thermal.
I really appreciate that. And then you're in Siemens software or junior
I can know you can.
Okay. And then so I'm
I'm not sure. I took thermal here. I'm taking thermal here. Static?
sure.
We've done 1, 2, 3, 4.
very much.
Anyone have any questions on the final project? Oh, for those of you who don't know, it's due 1 week from today. So please get your finals in Tuesday and then week. And I'll wish you a great. Yeah. So again, your final must have 5 features. Again, you can use the same feature tool more than once. Do like 5 extrudes and call it a day. Someone sent me like 5 sketches and 1 extrude for the final. Don't do that. Okay, that will like the final got 90 points. And I think about like 40. So yeah. Please just like use at least 5 features. A sketch does not count. So feature
D only require just 5 features.
that and try to design it so I can print it for you. Because I want to print these. Okay, I started printing the finals from last second. Someone sent me a ball, and I told people not to make balls. So if someone had a ball, yes, don't send me a ball, please. I don't want to print. My future. Well, they sent me like an ornament, so it had like stuff on it, but it was still a sphere. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was also tall, and it was like this thin. I had a fun time printing it tonight. So that's just extra headache. Yeah. But if you do that, I can't guarantee that you get a nice part of it. Let's see. People send me like rockets, which is really cool. But like they made the tip of the rocket like really small and pointy, which is kind of difficult because it will just like print on top of a blob. So like the top of the rockets might not look like a rocket cone. Thankfully, there were a couple other parts that were kind of tall, so I printed them together so to cool it down. But don't bank on that. So yeah. Again, don't print super thin features because those, especially on the ones, especially those on the build plate, are not super fun to use. Wait, I can actually just show you some examples. Because I'm doing these right now. So again, I'm going to run through some examples of final projects from last group and also point out some things that you shouldn't do because it'll make my life a lot easier and you'll have better prints in the end. Okay, so someone decided to print out a like Halo energy sword, which I think is pretty cool. But the one challenge that this brings when 3D printing is you're printing super thin features at the corners, and they'll tend to lift. So if you look at the first layer, this orange is the part, and this is super thin, right? And this will make it more difficult to print. I tried printing this yesterday, and it just blobbed up and like flung it off the build plate. So the way I'm fixing it is by adding a brim around it. So this blue is like kind of like a support material, but on the bed, and it's just some extra sacrificial material. You'll see here that this point becomes a rounded corner. A lot of these very pointy ends can lift, like I said. So if you have your corners rounded, it makes it a lot easier to print. Let's see. Again, here, like this orange piece is like one perimeter, right? So this is 0.0, each line is 0.0 or 0.4 millimeters wide. So this is 0.8 millimeters wide, which if you've ever used a pair of calipers, that's like a very tiny amount. And sometimes if you print something like this, it's not gonna print. It's just gonna fling off. So try to avoid this. Again, oh wait, that's gonna lag if I do that. Here, someone printed a really cool bonsai tree, which I kind of dig. But if you look at these, again, just like the Halo energy sword, these, like the ends of the branches on this tree is like very pointy. So it became a little bit more difficult. These prints so far have been manageable, but I've seen worse. This cup here, I don't know if you can see that very well, but this handle, it was actually kind of thin. It was printable, so I did print this today, but I feel like when the person gets their final project and they pick it up, they're gonna snap it immediately and they're gonna be sad. So if you plan on making a cup, because a couple people have done that already, maybe make the handle a little bit larger so it doesn't break as soon as you get the part. Yeah. Again, this was printable, but like it could have been better. Oh yeah. Here's the ball I was talking about. Please don't do this. Okay, it's lagging. Show the part. Okay, yes. So this is like a good example of what not to do. Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Well, they just called it a ball. Is it from Ready Player One or something? Or is it from? Oh, okay. Well, anyways, well, it was also in Ready Player One. Anyways, this is a ball. If you think about, like, remember how I was talking about like printing vertical circles? This is a vertical circle that is revolved 360 degrees, right? So it is a vertical circle everywhere, which means that everything from the build plate up is going to be an overhang till 45 degrees, right? Or until I get to here, right? So in terms of surface area contacting the bed, it is technically 0 or like a dot, right? And if you think about it, if I tried to print that, it's going to fall over unless I use an extensive amount of supports. And then the surface finish is going to suffer because it's going to droop onto the supports and it's going to look ugly. I do, but they still like will affect your surface finish to some extent. This watch was pretty cool, but this is also like I would say pretty difficult to print, especially like this little spike right here. Oh, I guess you can't see it. Yeah, this like right here, that's very difficult to print because it's probably again like just one perimeter thick. So I'm just printing like a stick, and the printer usually doesn't like that. Also, for some reason, the surface is not entirely flat. So when I try to print it, it only prints like half of it, and then it like treats the other side as an overhang. Right here, you can see like the watch bands are floating in midair, which also requires supports. Here, like at the base of like the buckle, these 2 points here are very small, again, so increasing the surface area on the bottom of your print will make my life so much easier. So you can see here the surface area is almost non-existent, so that makes it more difficult. Right here, like this print is very easy, right? It's very flat. I'm not saying you have to do something like this simple. This is like a playing card if you can't tell. But like you can see, like this has rounded corners, so the rounded corners make it harder to lift and curl. So that is a good feature to have. Oh yeah, if you do text, I highly recommend you like emboss text into it. So like here, this person said like they cooked on the side. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, so they cooked here, and it's like sticking into the model. I think that's a good thing because it makes it a little bit easier to print. Um, I would recommend if you want to emboss the text, only emboss it like a very small amount, so maybe like 1 or 2 millimeters. You'll still be able to see the text, and it'll be easier to print. Because if you think about it, like the little dots and the O's are overhangs, so those are kind of annoying. And if you make the emboss like super deep, then the overhang's only going to get bigger. So if you do like a very tiny emboss, then it's usually fine.
Someone make an SR-71.
Yeah, someone modeled a blackbird last group, which I thought was super cool. I looked at their feature tree and it like went all the way across the screen. So someone spent a lot of time, and I hope it comes out well. But that will also be kind of difficult. For this text right here, you can see this is very small text. Oh, what? It just looks blue to you guys, does it? I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
What does it say?
I don't know what it says. I hope it's not a name, but it's upside down. So don't try to read it upside down if it's a name. Um, but like they have like the text extending outwards, um, like towards the build plate. And if you think about it, like these eyes are just like lonely by themselves on the build plate. So this text will probably be pretty hard to reproduce. Again, I recommend you emboss the text instead of extruding the text, just because it's easier to draw the outline of a letter than it is to draw the letter itself, if that makes sense, at least for the printer. Um, these are very like small nitpicks that I'm having right now, but this is just kind of good knowledge for you to have when you make things, because they'll come out a lot cleaner if you do them in different ways. You fixed it? How do you do it? Okay, yeah, speak into the computer.
So what you have to do if you are having trouble with getting the education license to activate on like your free trial, what you do is you go to a certain page on Autodesk.
Ignore my like bajillion tabs.
Wait,
He's so excited that he got his license, bro.
Okay, I've logged in for you.
you want to log into this page. You want to go down and you want to click Get Product and Access. After you access that, it's going to download the version again. Once when you
download another installer.
it'll download another installer and it's fine. But
I see.
what will happen is it will ask, there will be a little pop-up that will ask, do you want to continue? You already have the latest version. Do you want to continue? And you click yes. But only if you have this educational access right now.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. If it didn't work, if the uninstall, reinstall didn't work, then I would try that. Did it not work or did it work? Okay. Yeah, go for it. Thank you so much. Okay, I really appreciate that tip. I'm glad that worked out. Yeah, Autodesk is wild. Um, okay, let's see. Oh, this race car is also going to be pretty hard. So again,
What is that a play on the Arrow racing team?
no clue.
Like an arrow and a race car.
So this race car, like it looks pretty cool, but if you look further into it, it's going to be pretty hard to print. So if you look closely, these axles are suspended in midair, and they're very thin. So I'm worried that when I try to remove the axle from the build plate, it's just gonna snap. I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I guess. yeah, I don't know. But like also like I think like this wheel is like hollow on the inside as well. So like that might call for some supports. I might ignore that because it might be fine. Also like because this is a car, like the body of the car isn't actually on the build plate and it's just the wheels. So this whole stretch of chassis and aero is going to require supports. Um, like the wing on this car is very thin as well. I don't know if you can see that, but that's going to be thin and might require supports unless my bridging is good. Um, so yeah, that'll be pretty difficult. I'm gonna try it. Sorry, I can't. So far, I've been able to print most of them, but I've also been saving the more difficult ones for later. So yeah, this dice is pretty easy. There's just some slight overhangs because these are little overhangs, but they're not bad at all. This one's pretty cool, but this one's going to be kind of hard to print too. I don't know if you've ever seen those like stovetop espresso makers, but this is like the bottom of it. So I guess they modeled the whole thing, and when they sent me the STL, they sent me multiple parts combined with each other. So if I go to slice it here, you'll kind of see what I mean in a minute. This will be kind of difficult to print. Again, I'm not purposely roasting these designers, because a lot of these finals, technically speaking, are very good, but in terms of manufacturability, it makes it pretty difficult. So it's not just these holes here that are difficult to replicate, but if I go down in the slicer, stop lagging, you can see that the inside is completely hollow and this filter piece is floating in midair. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to print this. So I think this was a mistake in the sense that they accidentally sent me two parts and it was combined into one, and it sometimes is difficult for me to separate them. So I might be able to separate them, but I can't guarantee it. So if you do send me files, like please just send me one at a time because this is definitely two parts, and yeah, it's going to be difficult. I know I'm kind of nitpicking here, but does all of this make sense from a design perspective? I guess I can also go over like some ways to fix this or certain models. Like for one, please don't print a ball. That's kind of self-explanatory. Either choose something else or split it into halves. If you do decide to print a ball, please don't make it hollow because making it hollow is like excruciatingly painful. Yeah. Here, I'll slice it so you'll see. If you're gonna make like thin-walled parts, please don't make it like I would say like 2 millimeters is a good like safe spot. Anything under that might be heading into a danger territory depending on your model. So I'm gonna slice this ball, and then you can see why this was gonna be more difficult. Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, yeah. So as you can see, like all this green is support here. So that's all the sacrificial material I'm gonna need to use to recreate this this model. But the other challenge, because the bottom is already an overhang, but if you look at it, this model is also hollow, so that also means the top is an overhang, so that makes it even more difficult. And because it's a closed ball, I cannot like put supports on the inside of it to make it like printable. So I'm probably gonna have to talk to them about unhollowing this out. Yes, it's okay. But yeah, if you look closely here, zoom in. Like this is only like 2 or 3 perimeters worth of material. The slicer is doing a lot of like weird stuff to try to recreate the model. So it's like bridging in midair for no reason and stuff like that. So the slicer's just kind of getting confused. So if you do send me something hollow, make sure it's a nicely sized thickness. Because if it's too thin, it'll be a lot more difficult. Do you have a question? The final is due on Tuesday of next week, so 1 week from today. Yeah. You have a question? Yeah, so again, if you're printing something that's really skinny from the base, the way I like to combat it, oh, oops, it's gonna lag. Where is it? Oh yeah. So like in the example of like the Halo energy sword, right? The corners have a very small surface area, right? And the way I combat it is by adding a brim. So if I slice this again, it'll probably take a minute, but it'll be adding like a sacrificial material around your model to increase the surface area to help with bed adhesion. But again, if you can design it so that it doesn't need that, it'll be better because that means less post-processing time, which means like either I or whoever else is printing it doesn't have to take supports or the brim off. You can just take the part off and use it, right? But obviously, like for something like this model where the geometry is like very specific, it has to be pointy. So like then you resort to using this brim. So this blue area around, right?
Like you can make modifications to the object with STL.
Okay, so different colors is a very good question. At this point, my printer only prints one color at a time. The trick to like quote unquote multicolor printing is I can pause the print, I can change the color and then continue it. But when you have really detailed colored models where it needs more than one color on the same layer, that's when you start getting into multi-material unit territory. So I haven't built it yet, but I'm building a MMU for my printer. So it'll allow me to print 8 colors at the same time or more. Yes. So what it does is it will like there's a unit on the back that connects to like 8 different spools of filament. It could be like different materials or different colors of the same material. What the printer will do is it'll go about its business. It'll print, and then when it wants to change colors, I'm gonna have a filament cutter on my print head. So it'll go to the corner. It'll snip the filament. It'll pull the old filament out. It'll put a new one in, and then it'll continue printing. And it'll do that like thousands of times until you get a print, right? The they're significantly longer. Yeah. So like if you take like a benchy, right? Like a benchy for me can take like 20 minutes, right? 20 minutes or less, depending on how fast I'm going. If I like do, someone did like an eight color benchy MMU test, and like it took them like 13 hours or like something, right? So like depending on your model and how many filament swaps it takes, it can like significantly increase your print time. But yes, so the finals will be printed in one color. Right now I'm just printing white, but I'm running out of white, so I might be printing like green or yellow later. So your finals might be green or yellow. But yeah, as of now, my printer can't do more than one color, but they will soon.
Okay. For the final project, you'll submit an STL file. So you go to your Fusion and you export your item as an STL file. STL
yeah.
files are what we're going to use to print these. So
That's a good point.
that's the one that you're going to submit. You're going to submit an STL file.
It's actually step, but I'll go over that.
You want them to submit a step file?
Steps are a little bit better,
Okay.
but I can do both. So again, basically, when you want me to print your finals, you're gonna send me a certain file, and it's basically like a 3D file. So instead of sending me your Fusion file, you're gonna send me something called a step file or an STL file. Both work. I prefer step files because they retain the curves. I think I talked about it a little bit last week, but they both will work. I'll show you right now.
Yeah.
I think it also says on the.
The scale does not matter because once you print it, you can scale it down.
I recommend or designing something that is around the size of like a hand, right? Like it'll fit on the palm of my hand. I mean, I'm leaving this to like your best judgment because like some people will print something really skinny but very long. So like in terms of volume, it's like I mean, how big is my hand? I would say like anywhere from like 3 to 5 inches cubed is like a nice maximum. I mean, I honestly think that's quite generous. It's like that's quite a bit.
That's almost 60 mm.
So I mean, some of the final.
No, not three
Or like
cubes. 3 by 3 by 3.
Yeah, 3 inches, like 3 to 5 inches. Like smaller is generally preferred because like I have less training to do. But if your requirement like again, if it's like extremely tiny, I can use the slicer to blow up your file to be larger. But generally speaking, your finals will probably be around the size of your. But like people have asked me to print rockets, and like rockets are like this tall, but the footprint is like that. So that is a very unique. Okay.
I'm sorry, you wanted to continue.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna show you how to export real quick. It's very easy. So I'm gonna go back into the design area. So click render, go back into the design. Up here, there's the file button. You can do save as. Oh wait, no. File export. Sorry. So right here, under type, it defaults to F3D, which is a Fusion file. But the slicer won't read that. The slicer will read an STL or a step file. Again, I recommend you start using step files because they're kind of becoming more of the standard. So if you scroll down, yeah. So the slicer will read both STL and step files. Again, the step file is kind of like a newer thing that slicers are starting to be able to read now. But I can I guess kind of go into it because we have time. But basically, like the step file. Oh yeah, the step file will retain all the curves of your models. So especially if you have like fillets or just circles and stuff like that, it will retain an arc instead of drawing a bunch of triangles. So I know that some of you had some difficulty with the Lego assignments, and it was likely because you were importing an STL file into your assembly, right? So an STL is it's like a surface-based 3D file. So it will take your model, it will generate a surface, and then it'll convert that surface into a bunch of little triangles for you to export. But then the step file will retain its solid geometry, if that makes sense. It's kind of like hard to explain, but I guess I can kind of show you a nice example. So again, if you're exporting, you do File, Export, change it to Step or STL. Again, I prefer Step, but I'll show you kind of the difference between a Step file and an STL. Oh, what? Okay, here it is. So right here, this is an STL file, right? And then you can immediately tell it's an STL just because you can see like this looks like a flat surface, but if you zoom in really close, it's made of a bunch of triangles, right? And you can see, especially with this circle, how you might lose a little bit of resolution when converting your solid model into an STL. Also, it makes it a little bit harder to edit because then you have to convert this into a solid body before editing it. But yeah, I believe this is a step file. If it wants to open. I think sometimes step files are a little bit bigger, but they're still very small. Detailed. Yeah, they're still very small. Like an image file is still probably larger. Okay, yeah. So you can see here, this is a step file, and it looks a lot closer to a normal model that you'd model. Wow, that's an interesting sentence. But like you can see here that this geometry and everything, like this curve is not made of a bunch of triangles, right? It's all uniform and it's nice. So if you ever end up printing really large circles that were based off an STL, you can probably see the little triangles in it. So like back in the day, I made like a robot arm and I designed it and exported STLs because slicers couldn't read step files. And then when I printed it, I could see the triangles in the large radius of the arm. So if you want to do that and make your stuff look slightly low poly, then go for it. But generally, steps are better, especially when it comes to editing. Because like if I wanted to make this circle larger, you know, I can measure this circle very easily, where in a step file, I would like be measuring individual edges and I wouldn't get a very accurate reading of where the center is and stuff like that. Again, it's just kind of technical and nitpicky on like different file types, but the more you know, I guess. So yeah, step files are cool. Do you have any other questions? It can be like very random. It doesn't have to be related to the final. No. Game series? Like what kind of game? Like video game or strategy, like card or like board games and stuff like that? Okay. Um, yeah, Catan is cool. I like Settlers of Catan. I was talking to my friend about this card game that I played like a long time ago when I was a kid. It was called Mag Blast. And it's like this card game where you create like a space army of like spaceships and stuff like that, and then you use like your cards um, to defeat the enemy like fleet of ships. And then like certain ships in your fleet can shoot certain ammunition and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Strategy video game. Civilization.
I,
Oh,
I don't really play shooters, uh, which is kind of funny because I play Nerf. So I do Nerf, but I don't really play shooter games. I'm actually very bad at COD. I found out last semester. Um,
I played Wolfenstein. That's also a great game. Yeah, Wolfenstein.
yeah,
Call of Duty is a great game. Battlefield. Battlefield. I'm not a big fan of 2042, but Battlefield 5 is a great game. First person shooters, Crisis, Doom.
yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of a nerd, and I don't really have much of a life outside of school and stuff.
Nobody does.
Yeah,
nobody does.
So when I'm not doing my homework, I'm usually 3D printing stuff, to be honest. So um, I've been like constantly modifying that printer that I brought in. So I just got a bunch of new stuff for it, so it's gonna be able to print faster. But I don't have time to put it on until after finals, so it's kind of a bummer. Um, what?
I've heard it's a great game. Baldur's Gate.
I have not heard of that. I played Minesweeper yesterday. It was really fun actually. You should play. It's a good in-class game.
On stage. I have no idea. The one time I saw him playing on Minesweeper on stage, he lost money. I don't know if he makes money on it, but he lost money.
I don't know, it's pretty fun. I played like hard mode, which has like 99 bombs or something. And it took me a while, but it was pretty fun. Um, and like you can just type in Minesweeper and it's like there on as like a Google game.
Yeah.
So you can just play. Um, oh wow, you got a good start. Let's see. I played Tetris on my phone for a bit. I like, I don't know, I guess I like kind of the old games.
The last game that I played was Batman Arkham Knight.
Arkham Knight.
That's a good game. If you'd ever get into computer gaming, I would highly recommend like starting with Batman Arkham Knight.
Mm,
Because it's got a long story with like all proper side quests.
yeah.
It's like a 12-hour story long game, so it's really good. Whereas like most Call of Duty campaign modes, they end up in 4 hours.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
I think the problem for me is that I don't like spending money on video games.
I haven't spent a single time. I've got
Is Arkham Knight free?
no.
Oh,
It's $60.
oh, that sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, there are always sales on Epic Games. Where
yeah.
you got games for free.
Oh,
The
oh
entire-
yeah, that's how my brother got GTA 5.
Yeah, I got GTA
Yeah.
5, Arkham Knight, Assassin's Creed. I've got every game for free.
That's so cool.
I've got
Let's
a lot
see.
of games.
I think the only game that I spent money to buy was Balloons Tower Defense 6. I got it on my laptop. It's the game where you're the monkeys and you throw darts at balloons to pop them. You haven't played it? Oh no, you
I've
missed
played
out.
different tower defense games where I think it was one online game that you used to play where you had like stationary items as weapons.
Mm.
And I don't know, there's a website called Riv, I think. If Everybody has heard of it.
That
Crypt.com.
start is insane. Dude, there has to be bombs everywhere. Holy cow. Let's see. Yeah, you can play BTD5 for free on a browser if you ever want to try it. It's kind of like a brain dead game, but like
What?
it's fun.
Which one?
BTD5.
What is that?
It's the balloons tower defense,
Oh, the balloons
but the
tower
fifth
defense.
one, because that one's free on the internet.
I think the best game yet is Dino Run.
Dino Run on Chrome,
Yeah. That's the
pretty
OG
epic game.
Flappy Bird.
Oh, I forgot about that. I was really bad at it. I think I got like 4.
Flappy Bird was a great game.
Let's see, what else did I play? I played Learn to Fly when I was a kid. It's like this penguin that like, yeah, dude, I love Duck Life. That's so fun. I like grinded Duck Life so hard. I beat like all of them.
Like Fortnite for a while.
My brother played Fortnite. I don't know how good he was.
Then I left it because it was starting to get
Mm.
and now
I played Fortnite with my roommates like a month ago. That was the first time I played Fortnite. I died pretty quickly.
I put it off.
Oh, I played Plants vs Zombies.
Oh yeah.
Plants vs Zombies is so fun.
That's one game.
I'm trying to beat it for the second time, but I've just like, heck, it's honestly not that hard.
Have you heard of the game called Farm Frenzy?
No, I haven't. Oh, I found this game. It's called yeah, right here. I haven't downloaded it yet. It's called Foliage versus Undead. And it's like PVZ, but like 3D. So you can like plant sunflowers on the roof. Which, yeah. It's like,
What website is that?
no, it's like I watched a YouTube video and he's like, yeah, here's the
What
link.
website is that?
Yeah. No, like literally just like some guy like was bored.
BobbyIvar.h.io.
Yeah, this some dude just made this.
Some dude just made this.
Yeah. So I guess I'm advertising for him because this video hasn't concluded yet. Yeah, you should. I haven't tried it yet, so you should tell me how it is.
It's basically a Plants vs Zombies ripoff with just like
Yeah, but
IP rights protected.
apparently you can for the normal pea shooters, you can shoot, they like aim towards your mouse. So you can like have them like shoot wherever you want.
Who?
The pea shooters in foliage. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played it. I don't know if it's a hard game or not.
I play Forza Horizon. I was playing Forza Horizon once on a shuttle.
I want to get Forza. Forza's expensive.
I got Forza for free as well. For 4 and 5.
Before I got this laptop, I played the Forza Horizon 4 demo on my other laptop, and my laptop was so slow that the ground stopped rendering. So my car was just floating in midair. But like all the physics still worked, so it was like driving, but like I couldn't see the ground, so I just kept on crashing.
I like the environment of Forza Horizon 4, but I like the car graphics and the sound engineering of Forza Horizon 5. Like Forza Horizon 5 is in Mexico.
Is 5 the newest one?
Mhm.
Yeah, I played 4.
I've got 850 cars.
Yeah. I wish I had the time management skills to be able to do that.
Yeah, I downloaded like 2 years ago and I've cumulatively played the game for like 200 hours in the past 2 years. Well,
Oh, dude, have you played Realm of the Mad God? It's also a free game. It's like almost like Dungeons and Dragons,
I see.
but
Like
like,
Dungeons and Dragons.
but it's like a
Suck
shooter,
that.
but it's a shooter game.
I see.
So like it's medieval, and you have a bunch of classes like archers and stuff, and then you run around with other players on the internet and you shoot like monsters.
Ah.
It's very pixely, but it's fun. It's a super grindy game though, because when
Is
you
it
die,
browser based?
It was browser based, but
But
it's
it's
on
on
Steam
Flash.
now. Yeah, it's on Steam. Let's see. But like the thing is, like when you die, you lose all your equipment.
So you just drop everything. It's kind of like Fortnite. But in Fortnite, when you die, you also drop all your equipment.
Oh no, but like
What?
Realm of the Mad God. But like when you die, you lose your equipment, but no one can pick it up.
It looks like he didn't even change the font.
I mean, I think that was on purpose. I'm gonna stop the recording. I'm just blabbing about random stuff now.